The camera opens on a quiet room filled with Earth artifacts, a mix of books, gadgets, and random trinkets that scream human culture. In the corner, an alien girl is hunched over a book, her large, curious eyes scanning the pages intently. Her skin glows faintly under the soft light, and her antennae twitch with intrigue as she flips through the pages. Suddenly, she freezes, her expression shifting from confusion to astonishment. She squints at the page, then leans back, holding the book up dramatically. Wait, humans do this to reproduce? Her voice is both shocked and fascinated, echoing with a slightly musical tone. The scene cuts to a human sitting nearby, scrolling on his phone. He looks up, startled by her sudden outburst. What are you talking about? She stands, holding the book like it's evidence in a court trial. This. She points at a page with some kind of vague diagram. It says here that human reproduction involves mating? Physical contact? Is this a joke? The human immediately flushes red, choking on his words. It's not a joke. That's, biology. You know, how babies are made. The alien tilts her head, antennae twitching thoughtfully. Fascinating. But also, so inefficient. She gestures at the book again, her expression both analytical and amused. On my planet we split. One becomes two. Simple, clean, no awkward touching. The human laughs nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, well, humans are a little more complicated than that. Her glowing eyes narrow in curiosity. Clearly. This mating concept. I have questions. She steps closer, her expression a mix of scientific curiosity and innocent fascination. The human gulps, realizing he's about to have the most awkward conversation of his life. Cut to black. The screen fades back in, showing the human still frozen in place, his mouth slightly agape as he processes what the alien just said. She sits across from him, her head tilted in expectation, antennae twitching as though waiting for confirmation. Excuse me? The human finally blurts out, his voice cracking slightly. The alien blinks, her expression as calm and logical as ever. You've explained the process thoroughly. I believe I understand the requirements. You're here, I'm here, and you seem compatible. She gestures vaguely at him. Why not conduct an experiment? It's for research purposes. For research purposes? He echoes, his voice rising an octave. He stands abruptly, knocking his chair back slightly. This isn't some science lab experiment. It's personal. Her glowing eyes narrow, and she tilts her head, clearly confused. But isn't that the point of what you just explained? That it's personal? Emotional? Wouldn't a hands-on experiment provide the most accurate understanding? The human groans, dragging his hands down his face. This isn't just something you casually try, okay? It's complicated. She blinks at him, her antennae twitching in sync with her rising curiosity. What's so complicated about it? You've already described the steps. Is there an additional process I should know about? He throws his hands up in exasperation. It's not about the steps. It's about the context. The feelings. You don't just, ask someone like this. The alien leans forward, clearly still not understanding his reaction. So, there are additional unspoken rules? Human mating customs are even more inefficient than I thought. Why didn't you explain this earlier? The human lets out a frustrated sigh and slumps back into his chair. Because I didn't think I'd be having this conversation today, okay? He rubs his temples, muttering under his breath. I really need to stop leaving my books lying around. The alien's expression softens slightly as she observes him. You seem uncomfortable. Is this conversation unpleasant for you? She asks, her tone surprisingly gentle. He glances at her, his frustration ebbing as he notices the genuine concern in her glowing eyes. It's not unpleasant, just awkward, he admits. This kind of thing is sensitive for humans. It's not something we talk about so openly, especially with someone we barely know. She sits back, her antennae drooping slightly as she processes his words. I see. So, even discussing it requires a bond of trust and familiarity. She nods slowly, as though making mental notes. That is very different from my species. Yeah, the human says with a small, relieved smile. Humans are just wired that way. It's not just about the act, it's about who you share it with. The alien looks at him thoughtfully, then nods again, more firmly this time. I understand now. Thank you for explaining. She stands abruptly, her expression returning to its usual composed demeanor. But I still have more questions. The human groans. Of course you do. She steps closer, her glowing form now towering slightly over him as she leans in. This emotional bond you speak of, how does one establish it? Is there a manual for that too? He laughs nervously, scratching the back of his head. No, there's no manual. It's just spending time with someone, getting to know them, and building trust. It happens naturally. She nods again, her antennae perking up as though she's just made an important decision. Understood. Then I will focus on building trust with you first. He blinks, taken aback. Wait, what? It's only logical, she says matter-of-factly. If trust and emotional connection are prerequisites, then I will prioritize those steps before proceeding with the experiment. The human stares at her, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or run away. You really don't give up, do you? She smiles faintly, her glowing eyes shimmering with determination. Persistence is key in scientific inquiry. I look forward to continuing this bonding process with you. The camera pans out as the human sinks into his chair, muttering to himself, "This is going to be a long day." Cut to black with a playful, upbeat tune. The scene opens with the alien girl standing by the window, her glowing eyes fixed on the night sky. The faint hum of distant stars seems to resonate in the background, giving the moment an ethereal quality. She's deep in thought, her antennae twitching faintly as she processes everything she's learned so far. The human is seated on the couch behind her, scrolling absent-mindedly on his phone. "Human," she says suddenly, breaking the silence. He looks up, startled. "Yeah." She turns toward him, her gaze piercing and curious. "I've been contemplating what you told me earlier, about emotions, bonds, and the complexities of reproduction in your species." He stiffens, his face already starting to flush. "Oh boy, here we go." She steps closer, her expression intense but innocent. "I still don't fully understand. If reproduction is so critical to the survival of your species, why is it shrouded in such secrecy and awkwardness? Why not approach it logically, as we do?" He scratches the back of his neck, his face growing redder by the second. "It's not just about survival for us. It's about connection, trust, love. He pauses, searching for the right words. "It's intimate." Her glowing eyes narrow thoughtfully. "Intimate. You've used that word before. Define it." He groans, leaning back on the couch. "It's hard to explain. It's about closeness, vulnerability, sharing something personal with someone who means a lot to you." Her antennae twitch as she processes this. "So it's not purely biological. It's emotional." "Exactly," he says, relieved she seems to be catching on. She tilts her head, her gaze unwavering. "But emotions are unpredictable. They vary from person to person. How do you measure them? How do you ensure they're reciprocated?" He laughs softly, shaking his head. "You don't. That's what makes it so complicated and special. It's a risk, but when it works, it's worth it." She stares at him for a moment, her glowing eyes softening. "Fascinating. Your species values uncertainty and risk in one of its most vital processes. It's illogical, yet strangely beautiful." He chuckles, feeling slightly more at ease. "Yeah, I guess it is." There's a brief silence as she sits beside him on the couch, her movements unusually tentative. She folds her hands in her lap, her usual confidence giving way to something softer, more hesitant. "I've been thinking about your words," she says quietly. "About trust and connection. If I am to fully understand your perspective, I need to experience it for myself." His heart skips a beat, and he sits up straighter. "Wait, what?" She looks at him, her glowing skin faintly shimmering in the dim light. "You said reproduction isn't just a physical act, it's emotional. If I am to comprehend the full scope of human intimacy, I must explore both aspects." He stares at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "That's not. I mean, you can't just." Why not? She asks, her tone calm and curious. You're the most logical choice. I trust you. And you understand the process. Who better to guide me? His face turns beet red, and he practically leaps off the couch. This isn't. You can't just ask someone that out of nowhere. She frowns, her antennae drooping slightly. But you said trust is a prerequisite. I trust you, and I thought, perhaps you trusted me as well. He freezes, her words catching him off guard. The vulnerability in her voice is unexpected, and for a moment, he doesn't know how to respond. It's not that I don't trust you, he says finally, his tone softer. It's just, this is a big deal for humans. It's not something we rush into. She nods slowly, her expression thoughtful. I see. So there is an additional layer of complexity. Timing. Exactly, he says, relieved she seems to understand. But then she looks up at him, her glowing eyes filled with determination. Then I will wait until the timing is right. And in the meantime, I will continue to learn about your species, and about you. He sighs, slumping back onto the couch. Great. No pressure or anything. The alien smiles faintly, her antennae perking up again. This process may be more complex than I anticipated, but I find it intriguing. He glances at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. You really are curious, aren't you? Curiosity is the foundation of all discovery, she says simply. And I want to discover everything there is to know about humans, including what makes this bond so special. The camera pans out as the two sit in silence, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The human looks conflicted, while the alien's glowing eyes remain fixed on him, filled with an unshakable resolve. Fade to black. The next day, the atmosphere between the human and the alien girl is charged with a quiet curiosity. The air is thick with the unspoken thoughts each of them carries. The alien girl has been absorbing more human data, and the human has noticed a subtle shift in her behavior. She's no longer just analyzing the concept of human emotions and relationships. She's beginning to question them, to challenge them. They find themselves in the living room, the low hum of an energy device filling the silence. The alien girl sits on a plush chair, her glowing eyes reflecting the light from the nearby window as she examines another display of human relationships, this time focusing on the more intimate aspects of reproduction. The human enters the room, holding a book in one hand. He notices her focused expression and decides to approach the topic head-on. You've been spending a lot of time studying human relationships lately, he says, his tone casual, but with an underlying curiosity. What's got you so interested? She doesn't look up immediately, but responds with a faint hum. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about connection. The emotional bonds that shape your species. I'm still trying to fully comprehend the significance of these bonds for your kind. It's intriguing. He sits down on the couch, watching her carefully. Glad you find it interesting. It's a big part of what makes us human, I guess. Her eyes flick to him for a brief moment, her antennae twitching ever so slightly. I still don't understand the necessity of feelings in reproduction. It seems illogical, unnecessary. The biological function itself should be enough to ensure the continuation of your species. He leans forward, setting the book aside. Well, like I said before, it's not just about reproduction. It's about forming a bond with someone. Trust. Sharing a life together. Without that, what's the point of just going through the motions? The alien girl watches him for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before she speaks again. But what if I wanted to understand it? What if I wanted to experience it, to see for myself what makes your way of reproduction so meaningful? His heart skips a beat. He wasn't expecting this. You mean, you want to try it? To experience human reproduction. The words feel strange on his tongue, and yet he can't help but feel the weight of the moment. The alien girl's voice is calm, almost clinical, but there's an underlying curiosity, an intensity behind her words. I believe I must experience it firsthand in order to understand the emotional component you speak of. If it's as important as you say, then perhaps I should try it myself. With you. There's a silence that stretches between them, thick and heavy, as he processes her words. He's not sure what to say. This isn't a request he's ever had to consider before. But he can't deny the undeniable pull of her presence, the connection that's already beginning to form between them. She's sincere in her own way, but there's still a deep unknown in her eyes, a part of her that's just beginning to understand what it means to be vulnerable. I don't know, he finally says, his voice quiet. It's not something I can just explain to you in a textbook, you know? It's something that needs to be felt, experienced together. And it's a lot more than just biology. The alien girl stands from her seat and walks over to him, her movements graceful but deliberate. Her gaze is unwavering. I understand that. I would not attempt to replicate it like some sterile experiment. I'm asking to feel it, to experience the connection you value so much, to understand why it is such a central part of your species' survival. She stands before him now, so close that he can feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Her presence is intense, and though her words are calm, there's a distinct vulnerability in her request, one that she doesn't fully understand yet, but one that she's willing to explore. I don't want to just study this concept from a distance anymore, she continues, her voice softening. I want to experience it. And I want to do so with you, because you seem to be the only one who can explain it in a way I can begin to grasp. The human's breath catches in his throat as he tries to comprehend the magnitude of her words. This isn't just curiosity anymore. This is a request to explore something deeply personal and intimate, something that involves not just physical connection but emotional intimacy as well. Are you sure you understand what you're asking? He asks, his voice a mix of caution and genuine curiosity. I'm certain, she responds without hesitation. I want to experience what it means to connect with someone on this level. To feel it. To understand why it's so significant to your species. There's a long pause. The human is overwhelmed by the weight of the situation. Part of him feels like this is a moment he could never have predicted, but another part of him wonders if there's something deeper between them, something worth exploring. Finally, he speaks, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions in his chest. If we do this, it's not just about you trying to understand human reproduction. It's about us both figuring out what it means to connect on a deeper level. I don't know how this will go, but I think we could try. The alien girl nods, her glowing eyes softening with something that might be the closest thing to understanding he's seen from her yet. Then let us begin. I will try to understand, and I trust that you will guide me. The tension between them is palpable, but there's also something new, something tentative, yet real, beginning to blossom in the space between them. The camera pulls back slowly, showing the two of them standing together, the human's uncertainty mingling with the alien girl's raw curiosity. It's a turning point, the beginning of something neither of them fully understands, but both of them are willing to explore. The room is silent, save for the subtle hum of the ship's inner systems, but the stillness is heavy, charged with an energy neither of them can ignore. The alien girl stands near the window, her expression as unreadable as ever, though there's a softness in her posture, a vulnerability that has slowly crept in over the past days. She's not the analytical, distant being that first entered his life. There's something more human in her now, something he can't quite put into words. The human, too, feels the shift in their dynamic. His heart beats faster than usual, his thoughts spinning. The proposal she made, so clinical at first, has grown into something far more intimate. He knew it wouldn't just be about biology, but he hadn't expected the weight of emotion that would come with it. The alien girl looks at him, her gaze unblinking but somehow more open now. I've spent time with the data. I've thought about this, what it means to you. But I am still unsure. I want to feel it, to experience it. Do you understand this? Her voice is soft, questioning, the faintest tremor threading through it. It's a quiet moment of raw honesty, and in her words, he can hear her uncertainty. She doesn't just want to experiment. She wants to feel the depth of what connects human beings. She wants to feel the bond. He swallows, suddenly overcome with the complexity of their situation. It was supposed to be an intellectual exercise, but now he understands that it's so much more. She's asking for something from him, something he didn't expect but now feels responsible for guiding her through. He could easily turn away, explain that it's not something easily understood or replicated, but part of him knows that this isn't something they can back away from. They've already started crossing that invisible line between mere curiosity and something deeper. And now, both of them are too far into the emotional labyrinth to turn back. He approaches her slowly, feeling the weight of his own uncertainty. I don't know how to explain it. I don't think anyone really does. But it's more than just the act of reproduction. It's the connection, the closeness that comes from sharing something that vulnerable with someone. It's trust, comfort, it's intimacy. The alien girl tilts her head, her glowing eyes never leaving his. Intimacy, she repeats the word as if testing it, trying it out on her tongue. That is what I need to understand. To feel. To know why this is so important. He reaches out, gently touching her hand. The contact is electric, a simple gesture that seems to speak volumes. Intimacy isn't just about touch. It's about sharing a part of yourself, something deep inside. Something you can't just give to anyone. And when you find the right person to share it with, it's not just about pleasure. It's about feeling connected to them in a way that makes you feel whole. Her breath hitches at his touch, and for a moment, she allows herself to lean into his proximity. The closeness of their bodies, the space between them shrinking, makes her pulse quicken. She's trying to process the human concept of intimacy, and yet, there's something in her that begins to grasp it. She can feel it in the air, in the way his heart beats faster, in the way his hand rests gently in hers. The energy is different, softer, warmer, than anything she's ever felt before. It's the first time she's truly felt connected to another being. "Are you ready?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper, the tension palpable in his words. She meets his gaze, her own eyes reflecting the confusion, the longing, the raw emotion that has been building between them. For a moment, everything else fades away. The ship, the world outside, the responsibilities they both carry. In this moment, there is only the two of them. "I think so," she replies, her voice steady but filled with an underlying uncertainty. They move together, closer now, their bodies inching toward one another as the bond between them seems to pull them in like magnets. The alien girl's breathing deepens, the unfamiliar sensation of her body reacting to his touch stirring something within her. She's never experienced something like this before, not the emotional warmth, not the way his presence seems to fill every corner of her mind. She wonders how such a fragile, fleeting thing could mean so much to an entire species. As their lips finally meet, it's gentle, tentative. Neither of them knows exactly what they're doing, but somehow, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. The kiss is slow, exploring, an exchange not just of physical connection but of something deeper, something intangible. The alien girl feels her heart race, her mind awash with new sensations. The touch, the heat, the shared vulnerability, it's everything she's been searching for but didn't know how to ask for. Her hands find his, then move up to his chest, the warmth of his skin sending shocks of awareness through her. The human feels her hesitation, her need for reassurance, and he pulls her closer, holding her in a way that feels both protective and intimate. He senses that she's not just learning what it means to be close to someone physically. She's learning what it means to trust, to open herself to someone else. And in that moment, he realizes that she's no longer just an alien girl seeking to understand human reproduction. She's someone who has connected with him, deeply, emotionally. They pull back slightly, their faces close, breathing shallow. "Is this what it means?" she asks, her voice barely a breath. "Is this intimacy?" He nods slowly, his forehead resting against hers. "Yes. This is just the beginning. But yes, this is intimacy. It's about being vulnerable, trusting each other, sharing something deeper than just physical. It's about connection." The words hang in the air between them, heavy and meaningful. For the alien girl, it's an epiphany, a shift in understanding. She's no longer the detached, curious being she once was. She's someone who has just experienced the deep, unspoken bond that makes humans human. And though they both know that there's still much for her to learn, in this moment, they share something that transcends words, something that could change everything. The camera pulls back slowly, leaving them in the quiet afterglow of their shared experience, both unsure of what the future holds, but knowing, at least for now, that they are no longer just two beings from different worlds. They are two souls, connected in a way that neither of them could have ever predicted. The quiet of the room is soothing, a stark contrast to the emotional whirlwind that has passed between them. The alien girl, her head still resting on the human shoulder, is slowly beginning to process everything she has just experienced. Her eyes are closed, but there's a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. It's the first time she's felt truly understood. The human, for his part, feels a sense of warmth in his chest, something he wasn't expecting but has come to cherish. He holds her, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath against his skin. The alien girl shifts slightly, pulling back just enough to look him in the eyes. Her gaze is filled with an intensity, a new kind of curiosity, not about his biology, not about how humans reproduce, but about him and the connection they've forged. I never understood why humans were so drawn to each other in this way, she begins, her voice soft and reflective. I thought it was simply an act. Something mechanical, like all the other things you do to survive. The human chuckles, a low, gentle sound. Yeah, it's easy to think that at first. But it's more than just survival. It's about the connection, the bond we share. It's what makes us human, in a way. She nods slowly, as if the weight of his words is settling in, becoming a part of her. Her eyes seem to soften, her earlier uncertainty replaced by a quiet understanding. I think I feel that now. It's not just about the act. It's about what comes after. The feeling of being close, of sharing something with another being that you can't share with just anyone. The human smiles at her, his heart swelling with emotion. He never imagined this. Never imagined that his connection with her, with someone so different from him, would evolve into something so intimate, so meaningful. Yeah, that's exactly it, he says, his voice full of warmth. You've got it. For a long moment, they remain there, close, sharing the silence. There's no need for words now. The tension that had once existed between them, the tension of unfamiliarity, of questions left unanswered, has dissipated, replaced by something more comfortable, more grounded. They've crossed a threshold, not just in terms of biology, but in understanding one another on a deeper, emotional level. Their worlds, once so divided by species and culture, now feel a little less distant. Eventually, the alien girl shifts again, this time in a more deliberate way, pulling herself up to stand. She takes a moment to study him, as though seeing him for the first time in a new light. I have so much more to learn, she says, her voice filled with quiet resolve. About you, about humans. But I think I'm ready. Ready to understand more of what connects us. The human watches her, admiration and tenderness evident in his eyes. He knows she's not the same alien girl who walked into his life so many days ago. She's changed, grown, and so has he. The bond they've formed isn't just about the experiences they've shared in the past few days. It's about the potential for growth, for discovery, for something more. I think we both have a lot to learn, he says with a smile, standing up to join her. He extends his hand, a simple gesture of support, of connection. But I'm willing to learn with you. She hesitates for only a moment before taking his hand, a small smile tugging at her lips. Together, they stand in the quiet room, a newfound understanding between them, one that transcends the boundaries of species and culture. They've both learned that intimacy is more than just physicality. It's a deep, emotional connection, a willingness to trust, to share, and to grow together. The possibilities feel endless now, the future wide open with all the things they have yet to discover, both about each other and about the universe that holds them together. As the camera pulls back, we see them standing side by side, their hands intertwined. The ship's soft hum fills the background, a reminder of the journey that lies ahead, not just through the stars, but through the complexities of connection, of intimacy, and of what it means to truly understand another being. And the quiet of the room is soothing, a stark contrast to the emotional whirlwind that has passed between them. The alien girl, her head still resting on the human shoulder, is slowly beginning to process everything she has just experienced. Her eyes are closed, but there's a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. It's the first time she's felt truly understood. The human, for his part, feels a sense of warmth in his chest, something he wasn't expecting but has come to cherish. He holds her, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath against his skin. The alien girl shifts slightly, pulling back just enough to look him in the eyes. Her gaze is filled with an intensity, a new kind of curiosity, not about his biology, not about how humans reproduce, but about him and the connection they've forged. I never understood why humans were so drawn to each other in this way, she begins, her voice soft and reflective. I thought it was simply an act. Something mechanical, like all the other things you do to survive. The human chuckles, a low, gentle sound. Yeah, it's easy to think that at first. But it's more than just survival. It's about the connection, the bond we share. It's what makes us human, in a way. She nods slowly, as if the weight of his words is settling in, becoming a part of her. Her eyes seem to soften, her earlier uncertainty replaced by a quiet understanding. I think I feel that now. It's not just about the act. It's about what comes after. The feeling of being close, of sharing something with another being that you can't share with just anyone. The human smiles at her, his heart swelling with emotion. He never imagined this, never imagined that his connection with her, with someone so different from him, would evolve into something so intimate, so meaningful. Yeah, that's exactly it, he says, his voice full of warmth. You've got it. For a long moment, they remain there, close, sharing the silence. There's no need for words now. The tension that had once existed between them, the tension of unfamiliarity, of questions left unanswered, has dissipated, replaced by something more comfortable, more grounded. They've crossed a threshold, not just in terms of biology, but in understanding one another on a deeper, emotional level. Their worlds, once so divided by species and culture, now feel a little less distant. Eventually, the alien girl shifts again, this time in a more deliberate way, pulling herself up to stand. She takes a moment to study him, as though seeing him for the first time in a new light. I have so much more to learn, she says, her voice filled with quiet resolve. About you, about humans. But I think I'm ready. Ready to understand more of what connects us. The human watches her, admiration and tenderness evident in his eyes. He knows she's not the same alien girl who walked into his life so many days ago. She's changed, grown, and so has he. The bond they've formed isn't just about the experiences they've shared in the past few days. It's about the potential for growth, for discovery, for something more. I think we both have a lot to learn, he says with a smile, standing up to join her. He extends his hand, a simple gesture of support, of connection. But I'm willing to learn with you. She hesitates for only a moment before taking his hand, a small smile tugging at her lips. Together, they stand in the quiet room, a newfound understanding between them, one that transcends the boundaries of species and culture. They've both learned that intimacy is more than just physicality. It's a deep, emotional connection, a willingness to trust, to share, and to grow together. The possibilities feel endless now, the future wide open with all the things they have yet to discover, both about each other and about the universe that holds them together. As the camera pulls back, we see them standing side by side, their hands intertwined. The ship's soft hum fills the background, a reminder of the journey that lies ahead, not just through the stars, but through the complexities of connection, of intimacy, and of what it means to truly understand another being. End.